Well, hello everyone. Manny Make 25 here, and you see right here is for writing A plus speaks, and basically that you see right here is the picture of me right here. Whenever I was I would have been like in third and fourth grade, something like that. Like that would have been about the year 1994. I would probably say that that seems about right. But you talk about it for A plus. I'm sure any students that may warrant to where that I'm like yeah, if we were ever thinking about like yeah, while we were in school that we want to aim for the best score it was, but thinking about is to where that a lot of the students I can remember growing up whenever I was in school to where that some of them I'm like yeah, a lot of them to where that that they things that they want to learn, and especially things maybe to check into, but talk about say for writing though that if we would actually do the studies to where like with Microsoft Word to where maybe not all students had access to programs like these at home, such as how to write MLA writing it was, and then as well as a few other type of Word documentations and stuff like that. But you see right here is top I say for writing A plus, and if anybody is familiar with like any type of writing center to where that nowadays it seems like it's easier for to have somebody else look over the work other than that back in those old day the older days to where that I'm like yeah, it all depends really about what you have access to really, but let's just say that it's like talk about it's like students for paragraphs to where that you're talking about the subject though, the subject could be, it's like you start saying a subject could be, and it's like your goals. And let's just say that, go ahead right here, type in there for goals for achievement. And basically that you see right here is that, working right here is like, I'm like what you call is like, for whenever I type a word in, and a lot of times it's like that there's about maybe one or two words or so misspelt. But you see right here is to where a few ways maybe to get a good practice with this right here is to where I'm like, yeah, I included this picture right here necessarily, due to the fact because it's like that, anything that you kind of want to remember, it's like that whenever you were using this that you can remember from back those couple years ago your complications with it. But let's just see right here is I went ahead and have right this with with this highlighted in yellow. But if I were to go ahead and yeah, that, highlight that as well, anybody that may wonder to where I'm like really that what's the main purpose to why we highlight words, I guess, is that basically to where are they like pronouns and adjectives, or are they, any type of sentence fragments or anything like that, or if it's speeches. So if we were getting a speech in class, and that's what you're thinking about, I'm like, oh yeah, to where you ask you to, please speak, please speak, and you're like, speak about what? I'm like, well, really? I'm like, could it be anything? And you're like, well, really, I really don't know what to talk about, which I could tell, anybody that, yeah, while I was in school, like I mentioned before, to where that this was like an issue to her. I'm like, yeah, that, nowadays it seems like one of those important issues is because yeah, people are going to laugh at you anyway just by the way that you talk about some things, and they don't understand you. And I could more likely say to tell everybody here that it seemed like that it was mainly because that that they don't understand you, such as oh, you don't you didn't spell the word right, or you didn't pronounce it right, or any type of such as like if it's the word heading, such as writing A plus speaks. And let's just say that this was what you call it, it's like just like a pen and paper to where if I were to be writing about something, right, writing down notes, and then all of a sudden it's like yeah, if anybody knows, I'm like yeah, for like the typical for MLA writing, and like here right here is like I'm like yeah, that for like MLA styles to where it's like if it's gonna be like for like the body text or anything like that, or the change of the fonts or something like that. But anyway, but the type of stuff that maybe that we are maybe not really used to, or if we're familiar with it, such as to where we may think that writing is seems like a real tough challenge, just because that a lot of things that more likely are required to where that yeah that back whenever you were younger to where that you didn't like looking at your own handwriting and thinking necessarily to where yeah you're writing, oh, it's not going to make a difference. And and especially for like a student ID to where that if you include like maybe a little bit of writing details, such as maybe like on a PDF file document or anything like that, to where that they ask you to write about one or two paragraphs about something, and you're like, well, I don't think the tutors or the teachers or anybody are going to like it really, because on their hand that you did not include a signature fragment as well as the title, and then anybody who reads it is not going to understand the story. But let's just say if anybody were to think about it, is to where you write a reminder, or if it's any type of love story, and I'm sure that if it's going to be like a mystery story, or if it's like anything related to like journal, to where if you're going to be mad about something, and I'm sure that a lot of people, if they were to be writing about something, it's possible that they'll be writing about something that they're mad about, such as to where if they lost a game, or that they had gotten into it, gotten into an argument with somebody, or it's like anything related to maybe aggravation, and then thinking that well, it's what that needs to be provided on the writing, because like they say it's try not to involve any foul words of speech, anything that they call is like inappropriate, but on their hand that for the while it's handled, the way it's handled is to where that you have right here is to where that have for handing for handwriting is basically to where that I'm like yeah that there may be some words right here that means like for mispronounced, or it's like yeah that you got right here's a word, what do you mean by that, or I'm trying to understand, but the different things that which I could probably tell anybody here that I do not recall the very first time when I used Word, and I'm thinking it was probably about early of 1993 whenever I first used Word, especially for email. And it I don't know if anybody here remembers from whenever they were first introduced to email, to where whenever I was in school, to where that I can't say to where that yeah whenever I got my own home computer that oh yeah this is my first time using this program, or this is my first time doing this, and more likely there may have been several times, but the question is to where it's each several time to where that you had gotten an ace on every time that you posted, such as if you're going to be writing a letter or something, you send an email to somebody, and a lot of times it seems like, oh yeah, everything looks perfect, but then after that, and then after about maybe a few hours or so, it's like they say, I don't understand what you're saying. So in a lot of ways that they may say, yeah, it seems like a totally different story to where working with the tutor, and then they tell you that they're able to look at your work, and it seems like it's a little bit easier now, because back in those older days to where that it seemed like to where that making copies of corrections and stuff like that just seemed like it was it wasn't so easy to where that you had to keep it all organized in a folder. You may have had a backpack to use, something like that. But you have right here as an example right here of some of my Photoshop work. I used right here as a Photoshop, the paint tool, to do some of this, like these special effects right here. But I would encourage anybody to where that yeah that if a photo is going to be good for like maybe security reasons, or just say yeah that we need proof knowing that this is the person who wrote this, and especially who's speaking. So necessarily thinking about, I'm like yeah for maybe not every score is going to be an A plus, and top I say for if it's going to be authorized or reviewed, stuff like that. But what are the basic guidelines about you being professional? And more likely they say that yeah, well, more likely is to where that the three basic things will be is like to reread it a couple of times, and then to try to understand about what's being written, and as well as what the subject matter. So they more likely say is to where a lot of times that helps as well, is to where reread the work, and then if it makes sense, take the extra time to reread it, even though it just seems like that's just more time that just seems like it's going to waste. But the way I think about those, writing A plus speaks is to where understanding about, yeah, that this is really me doing this, even though there are some mistakes. But other than that, the Manny Make 25. Thanks for watching. Jose for Writing A+ Speak.